think my relationship started with the Jewish people and the Jewish community just as a function of my being a New Yorker. It was family, it was mishpacha. That's how I was raised and that's all I knew. Two of my sisters married Jewish men. The other one married an Irishman. Nobody married an Italian. So I think part of it was cultural. And then my father was governor, 1982 to 1994. And he, by force of personality and by position as New York governor, became the foremost defender from Israel in the nation, then governor. I did a lot of work with Clinton in Israel, a lot of joint binational commissions as secretary, housing commissions, etc. As governor, I was the most outspoken advocate for Israel in the country, period. First on BDS. Every time there was an attack, I was the first on a plane to go. I went to bring attention to the tunnels that were built from Gaza, if you remember, 1.5 mile tunnels to come up into the settlements. So it was personal, cultural, and then morphed into the professional. Because if it's not the New York governor, then who, right? I don't want to be arrogant. New York is better than the other states. But New York is better than the other states. So New York governor gives you a bigger focus, and I used it aggressively, and I'm very proud of that.
Last night was probably the largest demonstration against judicial reform in Israel. They marched from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. What do you think about what's going on in the current states of the conflict and tension within Israel?
My analogy is when they talk about global warming, glaciers are melting and the ocean levels are rising. Support for Israel is dropping, has been dropping for 10 years. And the sea of anti-Semitism is raising and has been raising for 10 years. So yes, let's talk about the demonstrations, let's talk about the Supreme Court, let's talk about the Prime Minister and his administration, but let's remember the context. Prime Minister Netanyahu took office December 22. This decline has been going on for 10 years, all right? So it's not about the specific. You know, it's politically convenient now for people who oppose Israel to say, well, look at what they're doing with the Supreme Court. I'm against that. Look at who he has in his coalition. I'm against Bibi. That's the current rationale. It doesn't explain 10 years of increase in anti-Semitism and 10 years in decrease of support for Israel, and it doesn't explain why the Democratic Party, which was like this with the Israel community, with Israel. If you were a Democrat, you were pro-Israel. There was nobody even ever asked the question. It was just, you were. How the Democratic Party winds up distance from Israel. Well, by the way, you now have representatives in Congress calling Israel a racist state, apartheid government. Just last week, you couldn't be more vile towards Israel. There were 212 Democrats in Congress. Only 40 signed a letter against her comments. That should have been 212. My God. Look, I disagree with the Prime Minister on the Supreme Court. I disagree about the way he did it. I disagree with the policy. That's my personal opinion. But we have to separate differential on an internal policy to Israel on the Supreme Court, which, by the way, if you wanted to talk about our Supreme Court, there could be a conversation, right? Our Supreme Court is perfect. But there has to be a differentiation between that current discussion, where we can have a legitimate difference of opinion. We can have a legitimate difference of opinion on the peace process, but not anti-Israel. Disagree with the politics behind it.
So what have you been doing to strengthen support for the state of Israel within the Democratic Party and even among the progressives?
Well, first, in some ways, I didn't even believe it. I was in like a state of shock and thought that this is a temporary something. It's going to go away. I don't know, it's a 24-hour bug that affected the Democrat. I don't know what. But then I realized this is not going away. And it is getting worse. And in many ways, we should have seen it coming. Because part of it was institutional. They have done an excellent job on college campuses of explaining the situation from a pro-Palestinian point of view. An excellent job. You go to a college campus now, they have been heard only one side of the story. Do you know about that? Remember the Holocaust? Do you remember 1947? Do you remember the history? No. They've done a very good job with young people. Also, politics today has unleashed extremism where people now say things that they wouldn't say before. They say hateful, nasty things before that they would never say before. I think part of it is the political environment. I think part of it is Donald Trump and given license to, you hate someone, you say I hate you, right? So that, I think, is part of it. We're back to big on conspiracy theories. Oh, there are conspiracy theories. COVID, there was no COVID. COVID wasn't an imaginary thing. You know, there are also some conspiracy theories. And we're back to Jewish people control Wall Street. Jewish people control Washington. Because it's all about the Benjamins, they said. Right? So you put all this together. And then it is a fundamental core of the progressive movement in the Democratic Party. The Progressive Coalition just voted against Israel, boycotted President Herzog's speech. The progressives. What does that mean, progressive? They're progressive. What does that mean? Teddy Roosevelt first started progressive Republicans. FDR, vote for progressive government. Mario Cuomo, progressive. Ted Kennedy, progressive. They didn't design a new word. This is not a new concept. I'm a progressive. But part of the new progressive platform is anti-Israel. Israel is an apartheid state. Human rights abuses, Amnesty International. And that's a founding premise of the progressive part of the party. And the progressive part of the party is the tail wagging the dog. Just the way the Republicans have a far right, and don't get on the wrong side of the far right, because in primaries they're very strong, and they are. The activists in a political party are very strong in the primary. So Republicans have to be careful about the far right, and the moderate Democrats are afraid of the progressives. I use the word afraid because it's fear. It's fear. When I was governor, I would have legislators call me up and say, we just passed a bill. Make sure you don't sign it. I said, make sure I don't sign it. I said, did you vote for it? Oh, I had to vote for it. The progressives were watching. But it's a crazy bill. Make sure you don't sign it. I said, "Oh, so I have to veto the bill. You sign the bill. And I'm the enemy to the progressive side of the party. Yeah. Which, by the way, I did. And I was glad to do because it was a way to make progress. It hurt me politically at the end because they were organized and unified to make sure they got me out of office. But an essential component of them is this anti-Israel movement, and they're very strong. And Rabbi, we've learned if you do nothing, nothing changes. To sit here and say, this is a problem, we should all be aware, and then go home, it's been getting worse for 10 years. And it grows. Today, New York Times, Nick Kristof, maybe we should think about reducing aid to Israel. New York Times, Nick Kristof. Why? Because it gains momentum. Yes.
And is there anything specifically that you are doing in terms of leading this new charge?
I'm starting a lobbying group, Progressive Democrats for Israel. Progressive Democrats for Israel. Because if you are a progressive Democrat, you are for Israel. You can be a progressive Democrat, disagree with judicial reform, disagree with that peace, but God bless you. But progressive Democrats support Israel. I'm not going to allow them to define what a progressive Democrat's position is. Tell me a better democratic state than Israel in the area. Tell me a more progressive state than Israel in the Middle East. Tell me a state that has more quality human rights than Israel. So a progressive supports Israel. We have to express our political voice that it is not okay for a member of Congress to condemn Israel. It's not okay. And it's not okay for the Democratic Party to accept it. It's not okay.
You spoke about the rise of anti-Semitism in your metaphor of global warming. So, what do you think we can do to stop, to prevent this exponential growth of anti-Semitism that we are now seeing and witnessing across America, even here in New York?
First, it is so shocking and sad to me that it is increasing in New York, and it is increasing in New York. It started when I was governor. I increased security funds for all the synagogues, temples, JCCs, but it was increasing. But it is now accelerated even more. 1/3 increase from last year. Past 4 years, set new records, 3 of the past 4 years. So it's a real problem. I don't think there's a simple solution, Mark, as you know, because you've worked at this all your life on different levels with different groups. But I think one of the points is we have to demand that people speak up. I think we've been too complacent as this has been going on. I think we haven't demanded more support for Israel. The Jewish population is key to the Democratic Party. Key. key electorally, financially, politically, morally, on every level. And I think we have not been aggressive enough in saying, we want your support, and we want you to condemn these voices of condemnation of Israel. And I think we have to do it with elected officials. I think we have to do it with celebrities, because it's so much normalized now. You know, it's everywhere. It's sort of cool. It's a cool tweet, you know? It'll get retweeted.
I think the point you're making that we have to fight this battle not only from without, but from within, the Democratic Party and from the committee. It's the point I made to Chancellor Rodriguez. He appointed about 3 weeks ago 7 of us, myself, and of the ADL and the Queen's University, to serve as his advisory council for Jewish affairs and community. And the point that I hammered home over and over again, that fighting anti-Semitism is not exclusively a Jewish issue. And I pointed out to the Chancellor, you speak of celebrities, Andrew, there's so many celebrities who are graduates of Jew, who are not Jewish. You should begin a whole campaign, right? You said about, anti-Semitism, anti-Israel being cool. Well, you know what? Let's make it cool. All right, to stand up for Jews, let's make it cool. To be pro-Israel. We'll have his hearing next Sunday here at the synagogue. Before I take questions from the audience, one thing I just must comment. You look fabulous.
It's true that had work though. Little button nose. Yeah, that's not real. This is a little button nose I had put on in Los Angeles.
Listen, the ladies.
Maybe that's not true.
No, the ladies of this congregation know my famous line, you can change your noses, but not your roses. All right, first the president of the Hampton Synagogue, Carol Levitt. Carol, on your behalf, on behalf of the congregation, I want to extend kudos to the governor. And I don't know if you even appreciate what you did during COVID for our For the last 20 years, we have a celebrated Jewish film series. COVID came, and Carol calls me and says, do you think we could do an outdoor drive-in Jewish film festival? And I said, Carol, where? And she said, why not at the airport? So who do I call? Our closest and dearest mutual friend, Ken Sunshine. And I said, Ken, why don't you ask the governor if it's possible? You should know, this is the only federal airport in the entire nation. The entire nation, we know this for a fact, thanks to Governor Andrew Cuomo. After 2 years during COVID, we continue the Hampton Jewish Film Festival.
My husband and I are immigrants 33 years ago to this city. We're from Minneapolis. And so when we came here, we were very good friends, personal friends, with Geraldine and John Corrado. And one of the highlights when I was a newcomer here is Jerry and John introduced me to your mother. And that was like great. She was what a woman. She still is, right?
Yeah, she is.
She is.
Yeah.
How old?
92.
Good for her.
Don't tell her I told you.
Carol's question is, what were Governor Cuomo's biggest mind? What were his greatest successes and accomplishments as the 56th governor of the state of New York?
I tried to explain this to a class at Harvard in the public to these schools. This issue we're talking about on Israel, you know what 99% of the politicians will say? Complicated. Complicated. Stay away. It's complicated. Complicated is bad. Why? Because politicians are in the business to make people happy. And if someone's going to be unhappy, then I don't want to do it. They'll do the easy ones, 90-10, 80-20. All right. But the complicated ones, they don't want to do. The complicated ones are the most important ones to do. That's why they're complicated. So I took on first the attitude that I want to do the hard, complicated ones that no one else has done, because anyone can do the easy ones. And I started when I was at HUD. I rebuilt the Chicago Housing Authority, which has been the worst housing authority in the country for generations. So I start with that as an attitude, and I start with the attitude that government is actually supposed to do something. It's not a hit to society, It's actually supposed to perform at the end of the day. So, physical accomplishments, firsts, New York State, first state in the United States to pass marriage equality, New York. Got that vote passed 2 years after it had gone down in flames. And by the way, New York passing that bill radiated all across the country. Because when New York passed it, they asked Joe Biden, they asked President Obama, they got a different answer. First state to do a $15 minimum wage. New LaGuardia Airport. JFK Airport is right behind New 2nd Avenue subway. Upstate, New Buffalo Airport, Rochester Airport, Syracuse Airport. All of these projects that were complicated. They were hard. Well, look, everybody was against rebuilding LaGuardia Airport. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, because the local community said we don't want the noise of the construction and the trucks. So the assemblymen and the senators all said, well, forget it. They don't want the noise of the trucks. So all of these things are hard. Oh, the new Tappan Zee Bridge. And they put it down there for 50 years. All of these things were hard and complicated, and people avoided, and we actually got them done. And that's what I do with that.
Repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
What would you have done about CUNY if you were governor? Because CUNY is controlled by the state of New York. They call it CUNY. CUNY, City University, SUNY, State University, except they're both the state university. But CUNY happens to be in the city. There was an incident when my father was governor with CUNY of anti-Semitism. A fellow by the name of Jeffries got up and made a really anti-Israel, anti-Semitic speech. My father called for him to be fired. You can have an academic exchange of ideas without raising anti-Semitism and hate. And I think it is totally unacceptable. And the whole point of my starting this lobbying organization is we have to speak up. We have to speak up. We're New Yorkers. Speak up. Demand response and demand something be done. And something had to be done about what happened at CUNY. It was unacceptable. The chancellor is a good fellow. I put him there. I would more want to know, when you have him, what happened? Did you have the speech before? Did somebody approve that language? You know, if somebody just got up and it was a shock, that's one thing. But if somebody approved that language and let that speech be given,
They should be held accountable.
they should be held accountable 100%.
You know, it's interesting that you cited the example of Leonard Jeffries, Professor Leonard Jeffries. In Judaism, we say that the children should not bear, or future generations should not bear the iniquities of past generations. You know, that the nephew of that Leonard Jeffries, one of Israel's greatest supporters, who happens to be the House Democratic leader, who was here for Juneteenth, is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, so that you see, we believe, and that's the whole process, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that it is human nature to change human actions, particularly within the family. So I'm glad that you brought up that example. It's good teaching.
It is.
And another funny story. I don't know if you'll recall, but we have the photo. When you dedicated the Second Avenue subway, it was New Year's Eve. At the time, you didn't exactly have the best relationship with Mayor de Blasio. It was a little.
Why do you say that?
We have the photograph, and it appeared. And it appeared in the New York Daily News. Riding the Second Avenue subway that night was Governor Cuomo on the right, Mayor de Blasio on the left, and in the middle, Simi.
That was a dangerous place to be. It would have been safer on the track.
True story. Next, Stephanie. Stephanie Bassman. Let me tell you something about Stephanie. Stephanie is only the chair of our Young Moms Committee here at the Hampton Synagogue. Her mother, Adele, worked for your father, the Assistant Housing Commissioner under Governor Mario.
How are you? How are you? She worked with me too.
I love it. From generation to generation. Stephanie.
We started the health bonding together.
Stand up.
Hi, it's really an honor to have you here today. My question is, Rabbi Schneier touched a little on it, but are you planning any plans to re-enter politics?
I want to see what happens. It is my passion, I'll tell you the truth. You know, nothing, I spent my whole life doing it. I grew up at a kitchen table where my father spoke about government service like religious service. He literally would say, you know, you could be a priest or you could be in government. It was like those I chose government for a number of reasons, but
That's why I chose the Rabbi.
but so I have a reverence. I have a reverence for it. And we really did do such great things. And we need so many things done now. I mean, simple things. Look at New York City. Look at New York City. Why won't you admit we have a crime problem in New York? Progressive Democrats. There's no crime problem. It's a Republican fabrication. It's they're making it up. There is no crime problem. Meanwhile, every New Yorker, you go to any New Yorker on the street and say, by the way, we have a crime problem. They say, of course we do. What happened the last time we had a crime problem? Mayor Dinkins came into office. Crime was sky high. You know what we did? 54% increase in police. Think about that. 54% increase in police. Now, it was such a big increase that really they didn't have time to onboard the police, and they were hired when Rudy Giuliani came in. But a 54% increase. Progressive, they say defund the police. Defund the police. The exact opposite is what we did, and it worked on the day one. But this is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You have a crime problem. Get it under control. Make people feel safe. Taxes. How much of a premium will people pay to live in New York? Especially now, post-COVID, when you can go anywhere, right? Zoom here, Zoom there. You pay 15% to live in New York. 15%. And it's a real 15% because Trump passed something called a SALT tax, which ended the deductibility of state and local taxes. So when you paid your state taxes, property taxes, you used to deduct it from your federal income. So you really only pay 50 cents on the dollar. Trump reversed that. The Democrats, by the way, every one of them promised as soon as Trump was gone, they were going to repeal it. Every one of them. You know what they've done? Nada. Hocus niente. No damn thing. But anyway, between crime and taxes, I think New York City is really challenged. And they are both issues that are manageable. Put more police on the subways. What does it take? The Democratic Party is paralyzed by the progressive movement. The progressive movement paralyzes moderate, reasonable democratic action.
So, I have one more question for you, then we'll end with Alex Novak. Looking ahead to 2024, possibility of a Biden-Trump agreement. What do you see? What's the forecast?
Do you want the answer from here or from here?
Oh. Or if you can integrate. Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
Joe Biden has to win for the good of democracy. Here, I'm worried.
Well, there's always you waiting in the wings. If the president of the congregation points to her husband, I don't know. By the way, Andrew, you should know that our first gentleman, Jerry Lipton, is also the former president of UJ Federation. So he's really been a great.
Why don't you run this in the Senate?
Andrew, have you ever been asked that question before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I run as a Republican. My mother will never talk to me again. My father will rise. No, I wouldn't run as a Republican. This has to happen on a number of levels. By the way, progressive, this is why I challenge, and it begs a bit of a semantics. There's nobody more progressive than me. My father was too liberal, remember? Or was too liberal to get elected. Okay, so they gave up the word liberal, because it became a bad word, and then the word became progressive. Nobody. I was the most progressive governor in the United States of America. Not just by rhetoric, but by results, what I passed. Nobody did what I did. So, it's not a long shot. This is the tail on the dog. There were only 8 Democrats who are part of the congressional progressive agenda. There were 8 of them who voted for Jayapal's resolution. Okay? 8 out of 221. 40 condemned it. The other states signed it. But they are a small minority. And they are wrong. And they are wrong. So I don't think it's a long shot. Now, The political engagement of the Democratic Party is one thing. The college campuses, I agree with you, is a much tougher issue. Because they have been doing that systematically for decades. They have, I just got 3 daughters who just went to college. On these campuses, this is a big topic and they hear only one side and they feel very strong. So I do believe it's going to be challenging on a number of levels. But I'll tell you what does not work. Silence. What does not work is doing nothing, which is exactly what we are doing now. We're doing nothing. And politics, they have a balance beam in politics. If I take this position, what happens? If I take this position, what happens? What we have to say is, pardon the coarseness, if you oppose Israel, there is a price to pay. And we want you to know it.
When it comes to Israel, I think the general American population, especially the Jewish population, who travel all around the world but never once been to Israel but have their attitude about Israel, they need to go there on a trip and see what life is like, and including the Bible population of the country. Go to Israel and then make a determination. Number 2, I worked for the city of New York my whole life, ending with running homeless shelters with single adults. And I have a strong opinion about police. I was very pro Bloomberg's policy of stop and frisk. Wrong name. It should have been called search and protect. It should have been done with community involvement. Because I'd be willing to open up my briefcase to prove I don't have a gun or a knife. I know they wouldn't target me, but there has to be a reduction of murders and killings throughout the country in major cities.
I don't have a question for you,
Come closer.
but I have 3 comments. We're from El Paso, Texas, and your father came to speak to us years back, and he was a neshamala. Rabbi will translate in a minute. Number 2,
It's a big compliment.
during COVID, you got on the television every day and broadcast a message. Your message gave us comfort and courage to move on. And I appreciated that because I was trapped in New York. Number 3, I think the squad has hijacked the word progressive. And to me, it's a pejorative term now. Maybe think of another term, and I think I would like it better. Just like Alex said, to rename the stop and frisk. Yeah, semantics is everything. Yeah.
My father was the best because what you saw and heard in public is exactly the person he was in private. There was no duplicity. He was 100% authentic. He only said what he believed, and he didn't give a darn if it was unpopular. He was going to say it. He was an extraordinary man. My sister Madeline is here. She's the one who married the Irish. She can tell you he was just, and it was all from the heart, and it was sincere and honest, and that's why I think he communicated so well.
A1.
On progressive, I am not willing to give up the word progressive. Yet, because I don't think they have stolen it, they've perverted it. There's only the squad, it's 8 people. It's 8 people. The word has existed since Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt. Why allow them to take the progressive tradition and define it their way? Is there a way to qualify new progressive, reality-based progressive? I don't know, but I'm not willing to, at this point, give up the word because it really is such a small group. And on COVID, that was probably the most important public service that I believe I ever performed. And it was probably was probably the hardest because it was every day, and I just wanted to communicate because we had Mr. Trump in the White House who would say what he would say, which would cause confusion. I just wanted to provide a sense of calm and confidence, and here's the information, and it's going to be okay, and there is a sense of organization out there. And I wanted to do it every day so there was a sense of continuity, because people had nothing to do during the day, right? They were just trapped in the apartment. So I did it every day for over a year, almost killed me, frankly, because then I had to work all through the afternoon and the night. But I'm very proud that we actually did that for the state.
It's not a question. It's a tribute. It's a tribute to your father, because years ago at March Synagogue, the New York Synagogue, your father was there in March, and it was for Martin Luther King, and we all sang together, "We Shall Overcome." And he was a favorite of mine. To you used the word safe. And I will tell you, collectively, that you made us safe. You were a phenomenal leader during COVID. You sat there, my husband had late stages of Alzheimer's. The woman who was taking care of him was on a train. She said, "It's disgusting here." We were terrified we were going to get it. And what happened? You clean the trains. I said, "Are they really clean?" She said, "They are." You are the hero, absolute hero. And if there's any legacy, Governor, that's it. You gave it back to all of us. And I want to thank you.
I think what Jerry is saying on behalf of everyone. Thank you. We miss you. And